So it is official, guys. Star Wars Outlaws is launching this year. Well, let's just hope so anyway, because obviously we know with Star Wars games, there is a good chance it could get delayed or even worse, cancelled, because Star Wars games just haven't had the best run over the past decade or so. But honestly, I don't see that happening. And as far as we know, the game will be coming out this year. Now, that has led me to the question of just when are we going to actually start to see some marketing material for Star Wars Outlaws? A lot of us, for example, were expecting some kind of trailer at the Game Awards in December. The game was actually nominated for the most anticipated game of 2024, and so it would have been pretty much prime real estate for them to actually show off a new trailer or just even mention that something was coming earlier in the year, for example. However, we got absolutely nothing on the game, not a single mention of it other than literally just being nominated in that category. Now, I did hear a lot of people saying comments that did make a lot of sense, that being that Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora had just launched, and for those who don't know, it is made by the same company in Massive Entertainment, and so they might not want to take away from the hype of that game by showing off their next game literally the day after that game launched, because Avatar launched on December 7th and the Game Awards was on December 8th, and to be honest, that does make a lot of sense. On the flip side though, Avatar has actually been received really well, and they could have almost used that to kind of boost Outlaws and say, hey, the team that just worked on this game that everyone is loving, they're also making this new Star Wars game. Now, with that being said, they wouldn't have known that by the time the Game Awards was happening whether the game was doing well in terms of Avatar. They may have not wanted to associate with that game because maybe Avatar had been a bust, for example, and then, you know, the next day you're announcing a new Star Wars game and people are immediately just going to say, oh, that game's also going to be a bust. So there is kind of the flip side to it, that they could have wanted to avoid it. They could have also wanted to piggyback off Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. There are definitely multiple ways to look at that, but either way, I do think it was just very interesting that we didn't get something out the Game Awards, considering we got actually a fair amount of content on the game back in, I think, June or July when they announced it, getting not only a trailer, but then pretty much 10 minutes of gameplay, as well as then receiving press kits and stuff. There's been a lot of stuff about this game, and it did just seem as though we were going to get something at the Game Awards in December. Now, before we go any further, guys, I wanted to give you a quick but exciting announcement. I've actually overhauled my Patreon, and there is now a free tier on the Patreon. Yes, free Patreon, while still giving you some of the awesome bonuses that we do have over there on the Patreon. Signing up for free will give you access to my private Discord channel. You'll also get the power to vote on the content that you get to see here on the channel, having an actual say in all of the content that goes up, not only on this channel, but my other channels as well. And most excitingly, I'm going to be doing a heap of giveaways throughout this year, giving away stuff like the new merch, for example. There's going to be new merch drops every 2 months or so, giving away some games throughout the year, and all of those giveaways are going to be done through the Patreon. All you need to do is click this button that says join for free. There's no catch to it at all. You're not going to get spammed with emails or anything like that. It is literally just a free tier to the Patreon for those who aren't interested in paying. And by doing so, you're going to be more involved in the community and also get some chances to win giveaways, vote on the content you want to see, and even get access to the private Discord channel, like I said. So be sure to head to the Patreon link down in the description. Click that button that says join for free. But with that being said, let's get stuck back into the video. Now, I am definitely getting curious as to when we are going to see some news around Star Wars Outlaws. I'd have to imagine this game would have to be Ubisoft's biggest launch of 2024, maybe alongside Assassin's Creed Codename Red that's launching this year as well. But even though that might be bigger because it's technically their own IP, considering Assassin's Creed is obviously owned by Ubisoft, that doesn't necessarily mean it is the bigger launch, because we all know that Star Wars is absolutely huge, and this game could draw a lot of eyes to Ubisoft as well as Massive Entertainment. And so, like I said, I would have to guess this has got to be their biggest launch of 2024. Now, I initially sort of thought the game would be launching later in 2024, as that is just when most AAA games do launch. We all know that around the September, October, November type of time period, that is usually when like the biggest games of the year come out. It generally tends to be that way every single year. However, for some reason, I do actually just think there is a good chance it could launch earlier in the year. We saw that with Jedi Survivor, and it did prove that Star Wars games can launch earlier on in the year and still do really, really well. And it does actually just seem like a lot of AAA games are moving away from that holiday period, whether it is just to avoid competition or whether it's maybe to give themselves a bit of extra time. Maybe a lot of games that were, you know, planning to launch in November 2023, for example, have pushed themselves back to April 2024, and therefore they're gaining an extra 6 months rather than having to wait a whole extra year or something like that. It does just seem as though games are kind of spreading themselves out a little bit more than they used opposed to maybe 5 or 10 years ago. Now, if that is the case that we could get the game earlier on in the year, then there is a chance we could start to get some news pretty soon, considering it could only be, for example, 3 to 4 months away. If we are going off the same time period as Jedi Survivor, then that launched in April. And let's just say even this was pushed back to May or something like that, that realistically is only 4 or 5 months away. And generally speaking, the marketing push for most AAA games starts around 3 months before the game comes out. In terms of like the constant marketing push anyway, most games get a trailer like a year in advance or something like that. But when it comes to the point where they're constantly marketing the game as in a trailer every month and stuff like that, that does generally tend to be around 3 to 4 months before the game actually launches. And obviously that would land us pretty much right now as to when they could start promoting this game, if that is going to be the case. Now, on the flip side, if the game isn't to launch until later on in the year, I would wager that the next set of trailers and just promotional material could be closer to the middle of the year, which is definitely a little bit sad to think about, but this could be at either one of the third-party showcases, for example. Xbox and PlayStation, they both generally will have some sort of showcase in the middle of the year, or the way that they've been doing it lately, they actually tend to have them like every 3 or 4 months now. So it could show up at one of the Xbox shows or one of the PlayStation shows, for example. There is also a really good chance, if that were the case, that it could show up at Gamescom, which usually takes place in August. And so unfortunately, we still could be ages away, which, like I said, makes me pretty sad to think about. I really want this game to come out sooner rather than later. But obviously, with that being said too, I'd rather the game be done well and not rushed, and therefore I'm more than willing to wait for it. But yeah, the inner child in me wants to play the game this very day, for example. So hopefully we do start to get it soon. I'm not too sure when it is going to be. Like I said, I thought it was going to be later on in the year, but it does just seem as though it is a possibility anyway that it could be launching in the earlier part of the year, mostly just due to the fact that they've done a lot of promotional material already, considering how, early they announced the game. If it is coming out late in 2024, then why the hell did they announce it in July of 2023 and give us 10 minutes of gameplay and stuff all the way back then? That generally doesn't really happen. We then also got the press kit, like I mentioned. That all just makes me think that the game could potentially be launching earlier in the year, and I definitely do hope that is the case. Either way, I am very keen to hear what you guys think about when the game is going to launch. Let me know roughly the month that you guys think the game is going to be launching down in the comment section. I'm always keen to hear your thoughts. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and may the force be with you always.